Whether it's your favorite team scoring an unbelievable touchdown or a devastating hit that leaves you on the edge of your seat, football is full of jaw-dropping moments. But here's the thing, every once in a while, a moment is so intense, so game-changing that the NFL steps in and says, okay, we can't let that happen again. That's right, some plays are so impactful that they force the NFL to rewrite the rulebook. And guess what? Sometimes it's not just a freak accident, but a player who found a loophole and made it their secret weapon. In today's video, we're counting down the 10 NFL players who changed the rules forever. Alright, let's kick it off with a tackle that changed the NFL's focus on player safety for good. First up, we've got one of the most notorious safeties in NFL history, Roy Williams. Playing for the Dallas Cowboys, Williams built a reputation as a hard-hitting defender. Now, we all love watching a big hit, but what Williams became known for was something else entirely. In the early 2000s, Williams popularized the horse collar tackle, a move where a defender grabs the back of the ball carrier's shoulder pads and yanks them down violently. This wasn't just a typical hard tackle, it was a move that often left players crumpled on the field, dealing with severe injuries. 2004 was the season that really got the NFL's attention. Williams' horse collar tackles resulted in 3 major injuries, including breaking Terrell Owens' ankle, one of the league's most exciting players at the time. It wasn't just star power that got the NFL involved though. This move was straight up dangerous. By the end of the season, the league had seen enough and officially banned the horse collar tackle. Any player caught using it would face a 15-yard penalty and more often than not, a hefty fine. Williams didn't just change the way defenders tackle, he made the league take a long, hard look at player safety. The tuck rule. No list of NFL rule changes would be complete without mentioning Tom Brady and one of the most controversial rules ever to hit the field. Let's go back to the 2001 AFC divisional playoff game between the New England Patriots and the Oakland Raiders. Snow was coming down on Foxborough and the game was tight. Late in the fourth quarter, with the Raiders leading 13-10, Brady dropped back to pass. Raiders cornerback Charles Woodson came flying in, knocked the ball out of Brady's hand, and the Raiders recovered what seemed to be a game-sealing fumble. But wait, what's that? After reviewing the play, the officials ruled that Brady's arm was moving forward when he lost control of the ball. Under the tuck rule, this meant it wasn't a fumble, but an incomplete pass. Patriots fans rejoiced. Raiders fans were furious, and the Patriots went on to tie the game with a field goal and win it in overtime. The rest is history, with Brady leading the Patriots to their first Super Bowl title that year. But the tuck rule didn't go away quietly. It lingered in the NFL rulebook for over a decade, causing confusion and controversy in other games. Finally, in 2013, the league decided enough was enough and abolished the tuck rule altogether. It may have helped launch the Patriots dynasty, but it's safe to say no one misses this rule, except maybe Tom Brady. Next up is a guy who played the game with a level of physicality you don't often see in wide receivers. We're talking about Hines Ward, the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers wideout. Ward wasn't just known for his sure hands or clutch catches. He was known for his brutal blocking. He would lay out defenders without hesitation, and while his team loved it, the league saw it differently. In 2008, Ward delivered a vicious blindside block on Cincinnati Bengals linebacker Keith Rivers. The result? Rivers suffered a broken jaw, ending his season. Ward's hit was clean by the rules at the time, but the NFL recognized that it was the kind of play that could have devastating consequences if allowed to continue. So in 2009, the league implemented the Hines Ward rule, which banned blindside blocks that involve helmet, shoulder, or forearm contact to the head or the neck area of a defender. Ward's physical style earned him the reputation of one of the dirtiest players in the league, but it also changed the way offensive players block defenders. Now every time a wide receiver lays a block, they've got to think twice, thanks to Hines Ward. When we talk about legendary pass rushers, few names stand out more than Deacon Jones. The Los Angeles Rams star was so dominant that he pretty much invented the term sack to describe what it did to quarterbacks. But what made him nearly unstoppable wasn't just his size or strength, it was his go-to move, the head flap. Jones would slap an offensive lineman's helmet as hard as he could, stunning them just long enough for him to blow by and get to the quarterback. The head slap was incredibly effective, but it wasn't exactly safe. Repeated blows to the head, especially with helmets that were far less protective than today's gear, could lead to serious injury. So in 1977, the NFL outlawed the head slap entirely. The rule change marked one of the first steps the league took toward reducing head injuries, and while Deacon Jones may have hated it, it was a move that set the stage for future safety reforms. Even without the head slap, Jones was still one of the most dominant players of his era. He may have lost his secret weapon, but he gained the respect of generations of players who came after him. Let's take a trip back to the 1980s and talk about one of the NFL's most colorful characters, Lester Hayes. Playing cornerback for the Oakland Raiders, Hayes was known for being a ball-hawking defender, but he had a little secret weapon, stickum. If you're unfamiliar, stickum is the incredibly sticky substance that players use to apply to their hands and arms to help them catch the ball, and Hayes used it to the extreme. In 1980, Hayes had an astonishing 13 interceptions in the regular league and went on to dominate in the playoffs, helping the Raiders win the Super Bowl. But there was one big problem. He practically covered himself in stickum. He didn't just have it on his hands, he'd coat his arms and jersey with the stuff, making it nearly impossible for the ball to slip away from him. Unsurprisingly, the NFL didn't love that. The following season, the league banned stickum and any other sticky substance that could give players an unfair advantage. Hayes' interception numbers dropped after the ban, but he still went on to have a Hall of Fame career. The stickum ban is just one of those rules that the NFL had to implement to keep the playing field level and to make sure that players weren't covered head to toe in glue. Here's a fun one for you. Jimmy Graham, the Pro Bowl tight end who played for the New Orleans Saints, Seattle Seahawks, and others, was a multi-sport athlete. Before his NFL career, Graham played basketball at the University of Miami, and when he hit the football field, he brought a little bit of basketball flair with him. After scoring touchdowns, Graham loved to dunk the football over the crossbar, and fans went wild every time he did it. But not everyone loved it. In 2013, after one of Graham's signature dunks knocked the goalpost off center and caused a delay in the game, the NFL decided to ban the celebration entirely. They argued that it was a safety issue, especially since the goalpost needed to be adjusted after each dunk. Graham wasn't thrilled, and the fans definitely missed the celebration, but the league held firm. The ban on dunking over the goalpost was enforced, and to this day, you won't see anyone pulling off that iconic move without getting a penalty. Even though the rule was made to prevent delays, it's still one of the more lighthearted rule changes in NFL history. Roy Williams makes another appearance on our list, and this time, it's for a completely different reason. Aside from his notorious horse-collar tackles, Williams was also known for his helmet-to-helmet hits. These bone-crushing tackles weren't just hard, they were dangerous. Players were getting concussions left and right, and with increased awareness of head injuries in the NFL, the league knew it had to make a change. In 2010, the NFL implemented strict rules against helmet-to-helmet hits, particularly those that occurred in defenseless situations, like when a wide receiver is going up for a catch. The rule change not only impacted how defenders approach their tackles, but also had a major influence on the way the game is officiated. With player safety in mind, helmet-to-helmet hits now result in penalties, fines, and in some cases, ejections from the game. Williams' aggressive style was emblematic of a different era in football, an era where big hits were celebrated, and the long-term effects of those hits weren't fully understood. But as the NFL began to prioritize player health, the rule change became one of the most significant in recent years. For anyone who's a Bengals fan, the 2005 playoffs are a painful memory. Cincinnati was coming off one of their best seasons in years, and they were poised for a deep playoff run, led by their star quarterback, Carson Palmer. But on their very first possession of the game, disaster struck. Palmer dropped back to pass and launched a beautiful deep ball to wide receiver Chris Henry. The pass was perfect, but right after releasing it, Palmer was hit low by Pittsburgh Steelers defensive tackle Kimo Van Oelhoffen. The result? A torn ACL and MCL for Palmer, ending his season and the Bengals' Super Bowl hopes. The hit wasn't illegal at the time, but it was a dangerous one. The NFL took note, and in 2006, they implemented a new rule preventing defenders from hitting quarterbacks below the knees, unless they were blocked into them. This change, known as the Carson Palmer rule, was designed to protect quarterbacks from potentially career-ending injuries, and it's still in effect today. Palmer's injury was a turning point for the league, emphasizing the importance of protecting its most valuable assets, its quarterbacks. Since then, the NFL has continued to add rules aimed at keeping quarterbacks healthy and on the field. Before the NFL cracked down on celebrations, there was Mark Gastineau, one of the most dominant pass rushers of the 1980s. Gastineau was a star for the New York Jets, but what really made him famous, aside from his ability to sack quarterbacks, was his elaborate, over-the-top sack celebrations. Gastineau would dance, gyrate, and taunt his opponents after every sack. And while it was entertaining for fans, it didn't sit well with everyone on the field. Things finally came to a head during a game against the Los Angeles Rams, when Gastineau's celebration after a sack sparked a bench-clearing brawl. The NFL decided they had seen enough and introduced the excessive celebration rule in 1984, penalizing players for taunting or celebrating in a way that could provoke their opponents. While Gastineau's sack dances are a thing of the past, celebrations haven't gone away entirely. The NFL has since loosened its restrictions on player celebrations, allowing for more creative and fun as long as it doesn't go too far. But it was Mark Gastineau who first made the league realize that they needed to put some limits on how players celebrated on the field. Now let's take it way back to the early days of football and talk about a name that old school fans will recognize: Bronco Nagurski. Back in 1932, the rules of the NFL were a little different than they are today. For example, quarterbacks couldn't throw a forward pass unless they were at least 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. This was a weird rule and it didn't last long, thanks to a controversial play involving Nagurski. In the 1932 NFL championship game, Nagurski took a handoff, stepped back, and threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Red Grange. The problem? It looked like Nagurski wasn't 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he threw it. The play stood, the Bears won the championship, but the controversy was enough for the NFL to make a major change. The following season, the league amended the rule, allowing passes to be thrown from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage. This simple rule change revolutionized the way football was played. By giving quarterbacks more flexibility in where they could throw the ball, it opened up the game and made passing a much bigger part of NFL offenses. Bronco Nagurski may not be a household name today, but his impact on the game can still be felt every time a quarterback drops back to pass. And that wraps up our list of 10 NFL players who changed the rules. From making the game safer to keeping things fair, these players left their mark on the league in more ways than one. What do you think? Which of these rule changes had the biggest impact on the game? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing football content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.